With the Battlefield 2018 reveal being just over a week away now, the community is abuzz with chatter about what it is that DICE will be revealing. People wondering if the setting will be modern day or World War II, what DICE means by the battlefield never being the same, and everyone and their dog trying to figure out the next stage of the Battlefield Easter egg that so far has uncovered the reveal date for the game. But as with every Battlefield game that has come and gone, there are features that I would not like to see again. Here's my list of 6 things that Battlefield 2018 doesn't need to include. Number 1. Behemoths. These were introduced into Battlefield 1 as a comeback mechanic, a way of turning the tides of the battle if you were losing during a round of conquest, or needed some extra firepower to break through a good defense during a round of operations. But I don't think they ever quite had the impact that DICE intended, at least not in the Conquest game mode. The changes to Conquest, removing the rule of holding a majority of flags, bleeding the enemy's ticket count, allowed DICE to implement Behemoths. But in my experience, they rarely helped the losing team close the gap in the score, and really, they just became a distraction for a few minutes. The one exception is the SHA-2C, the only behemoth added after the launch of Battlefield 1, but if it was driven by a clueless player, then its effect was just as weak as some of the others. The fact there was only one behemoth added post-launch says to me that DICE realised the flawed nature of behemoths, and instead they chose to just focus on the ones they'd already included in the base game. They can be much more helpful during an operations match, but they become just such a big target for the defending team to focus on, they can be destroyed in a matter of seconds. The second thing that Battlefield 2018 doesn't need to include is the elite class system. Much like Behemoths, elite classes were added to Battlefield 1 to allow one player to have significantly more impact on a portion of the match compared to being a standard soldier. They're also an extension of Battlefield 4's weapon pickup system, but instead of just having a weapon, you become a completely different class, and you have a completely different loadout. While they do create somewhat of a side objective for the team facing off against one, I feel their implementation is extremely poor. You cannot put down the elite class once you're finished using it, and you have to remain as the elite class until you're killed and can then respawn in. Now, often the elite kits can be very useful for a few seconds during a given gunfight or a segment of action on the map, but then they become extremely limiting in their function, and you have to actively change your playstyle to suit the elite kit, rather than being able to put the kit down and become a normal soldier again. Take, for example, the Trench Raider. It's great in close quarters, maybe inside Fort de Vaux, smashing up enemies, but as soon as you're done clearing a room, you have to go searching for enemies to kill, really to continue the function of the class. You're extremely limited to close-range combat. The Flame Trooper is another great example. Outside of close quarters, you are next to useless. You have to try and stealthily find the next group of enemies, and then engage them at close range, rather than being able to drop the kit and go back to being a normal soldier, where you're probably going to be much more helpful. In Battlefield 2018, I'd like it if we either went back to Battlefield 4's system of weapon pickups that can then be dropped afterwards, or just a removal of the feature altogether. Switching gears now for number 3, away from gameplay for a second, let's talk about how Battlefield 2018 doesn't need to include random loot boxes. After the Star Wars Battlefront 2 debacle, EA would be, in my opinion, completely stupid to include them in their next big AAA release, even though they have stated they will continue to use them in some of their sports titles like Madden and FIFA, where specific modes are built around them. In Battlefield 1, the random battle packs did not satisfy anybody's progression itch, and gave players no clear path at all to unlocking some of those cooler looking skins for the guns that they like to use. Even worse, they were available to purchase for real money as well. Not sure how many people did that, but I'm sure not too many. No clear percentage chance figures were published for the battle packs, and therefore spending your money on them meant you still didn't know what you were actually getting. For Battlefield 2018, let's just ditch the random, let's ditch loot boxes, and instead, I'd love to see a robust, clear progression system full of challenges, rewards, milestones for you to achieve. A good soldier rank progression alongside weapon, vehicle, and soldier class progression as well, just like Battlefield 4 did things. If DICE is going to implement soldier and weapon customization, I'd love to see a proper storefront where cosmetic items can be purchased, a straight transaction of in-game currency for a specific item. At the same time, it'd be awesome to see cosmetics tied into the progression system or for completing specific challenges. Giving players rewards for their time spent in-game is one of the best ways to keep them engaged. Battlefield 1 failed horribly here, and Battlefield 2018 needs to step things up. The fourth thing that DICE needs to ditch for Battlefield 2018, in my opinion, and I think this will be quite a controversial one, is Suppression. Or at least the part of Suppression that affects gun mechanics. Now, Suppression has been a part of the Battlefield franchise since Battlefield 3, nearly 7 years ago now it was introduced, and I've played every single game since Battlefield 3 up to Battlefield 1, and I don't feel that at any stage of its existence has it been implemented in a way that players in general actually liked it. In Battlefield 3, it massively affected the spread and recoil of your weapon while simultaneously blurring your screen so much that you couldn't see what was in front of you. Battlefield 4 somewhat, quote-unquote, fixed the problem, but it still made your weapon go absolutely crazy when somebody shot at you. And Battlefield 1 tried a tiered system on a weapon category basis, applying different levels of suppression onto you and your weapon when you were being shot at, but without effectively communicating what level of suppression that was and how much it was affecting your weapon. So you really had no control over the mechanic whatsoever. General sentiment around Suppression has never been good, and I'd argue that all it does is give players ammunition to complain that the bullets don't hit their target, and they do have a point here. If I choose to start firing back at a player during a gunfight, then why should I be penalised with increased bullet spread and recoil for doing so? If I know I can hit that player despite them shooting at me first, I should be able to go for the kill without being hindered. If I die in the process, then so be it. That player clearly had a better shot than I did at that time. Introducing additional spread and recoil into gunfights is another element to think about, and it removes the inherent skill factor. I'd be happy if the suppression effect for Battlefield 2018 was purely a visual one, maybe some minor blurring of the edges of the screen, maybe an enhanced vignette effect, but changing my weapon's ability to shoot the way I know that it should is a big no-no in my book, and I think that should be gone from Battlefield 2018, and from the franchise moving forwards. The fifth thing that Battlefield 2018 doesn't need, and when I say doesn't need, what I'm really saying here is, DICE, please make sure you don't add this into Battlefield 2018, is grenade spam. DICE has this habit of releasing brand new games full to the brim with explosive options. Now, these make gameplay really cinematic for like the first 3 seconds, and then you get bored, annoyed, and eventually depressed from the amount of screen shake and just silly HUD icons appearing right next to you as people throw grenade after grenade at you. DICE, please, for the love of God, spend time balancing the grenade options that you provide to players for the launch of this next Battlefield game. I implore you to see that the community is sick to death, sick to the back teeth of dying from grenade spam in Battlefield 1, where it is still alive and well. You had a really good system implemented into Battlefield 4 about a year after launch, where you fully balanced grenades to make them more scarce and harder to obtain once you'd thrown your allotted amount. Get that system and build from there. Maybe even limit certain grenades to different classes, making them situational and predictable as someone who's on the receiving end. Oh, and reintroduce the proper grenade throwing animations from previous titles. Battlefield 1's magic smart grenades that could be thrown in about 0.3 seconds still aren't fun to be on the end of, and set the tone for grenades being used as pretty much primary weapons rather than distractions or flush out tools. DICE, please, don't put grenade spam into Battlefield 2018. And lastly, in my opinion, the biggest thing that Battlefield 2018 doesn't need is premium. The community-splitting DLC system needs to retire, take a back seat in its armchair, and just be forgotten about for the rest of time. One of the biggest complaints about Battlefield 1 was the complete split in the player base. A smaller segment paying up for more content to be delivered, and the larger segment not paying up at all. The larger segment ended up moving away from the game, leaving that much smaller player base left to enjoy the new content. Battlefield 2018 needs to employ a live service model, offering free, smaller and more frequent updates dropping content, fixes, balance tweaks, and even more. This would then apply to all players who purchase the game, with support for it being driven by microtransactions on cosmetic items. Items that don't affect gameplay and allow players to express themselves out there on the battlefield. If Battlefield 2018 doesn't go down the live service route, then I'm totally convinced that the situation we're in right now with Battlefield 1, with a very, very small and dwindling player base, will be exactly the same situation in 2020 after Battlefield 2018 has gone through its own content cycle. So, those are my 6 crunch points for Battlefield 2018. I have lots of smaller things and other opinions about what the game should and shouldn't include, but these I think are high-level features that will either make or break the game. My opinion, these things don't need to be included. I know you'll have your own thoughts, so leave those down in the comments section, give me all of your opinions on this, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the notification bell and get notifications switched on so you don't miss any of my future videos. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.